no matter the technology, we're going to have to go out and attack the market and generate pipeline. We're going to have the courageous ability to qualify the pipeline. We're going to have to stay on top of mastery of messaging. We're going to have to manage the ICP, which is extremely dynamic in this space, by the way. We can talk about that, but I have to manage the territory and prioritize the territory. And then fifth and final, no matter where I'm at, I'm going to have to deliver an accurate forecast.
Welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast, a weekly show featuring B2B sales leaders and executives. Hosted by five-time CRO John McMahon and Force Management co-founder John Kaplan, the show takes guests in the barrel, behind the scenes with the people who've been there, done that, and seen the results. Revenue Builders covers best practices for scaling and growing your business while sharing the pitfalls to avoid. Enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to another episode of the Revenue Builders Podcast. Today, we're joined by Alex Varel, EVP of Worldwide Sales at Cerebras Systems, for a conversation about what he calls the Great Pivot. In a world where the SaaS apocalypse is forcing a total reevaluation of the software-only model, Alex is sitting at the white-hot center of the AI infrastructure revolution. He's moved from the human layer of upskilling to the silicon layer of raw compute power, leading a global organization that is building the very highway the future of AI runs on. Today, we're stripping away the buzzwords to talk about the rise of the technical athlete. This is a great discussion of what the most elite sellers in the world are doing and will be doing in the future. The infrastructure of inference. What is actually happening in the background to generate a single word of AI output, and why speed is the only currency that matters. Intelligence over hierarchy. How elite leaders are leading AI agents to exponentially increase productivity and redefine the role of the modern seller. If you want to understand where the real value is being created in the AI gold rush, you don't want to miss this. Let's get into it. Alex, dude, it's great to see you again. Thanks for coming back on. Johnny and I have been waiting for this one.
I'm excited to be here. It's great to see the both of you. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
So, buddy, how do you want to kick it off?
I want to talk politics. I want to talk religion. I want to talk narco trafficking. I want to talk about tax dollars on hospice centers and daycare and learning centers.
Right.
And then I figured no, I'm kidding.
No, it's a good idea.
And you want to
On somebody else's podcast.
Yeah, figured that's not talked about enough. We might as well cover it.
Well, we know we got our audience in Texas covered.
I know. Yeah, you might understand where I would come in on those topics. But so all I want to do, just to open up quickly, because the only time that I've been on the show, I read a little bit of poetry, and I thought that I would start some sort of pattern or tradition. I don't know if it took off, but I wanted to read something just really quickly, and then we can jump to business, if that's okay.
Buddy, I appreciate it. John, it might be putting like perfume on a pig for Johnny, but let's try it.
Okay. So
attack.
Okay, yeah. Shots fired. So yes. Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth. He had an interview with Bill Moyers back in the 80s. He was a professor of mythology, extremely influential on a number of levels. Anyways, I'm going to give you this excerpt from The Hero's Adventure. He studies mythologies and creates these unbelievable observations around them. And he says, in The Hero's Adventure, out of The Power of Myth, this interview where Bill Moyers is just going deep down mythology with him. He says, furthermore, we have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero path, and where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. And where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. Where we had thought to travel outward, we will come to the center of our own existence. And where we had thought to be alone, we will be with all the world. And if I turn anybody to Joseph Campbell's work, my job is done, and I hope that maybe caused a few people to lean into that. Okay, but we can get to business now.
Well done.
Well done,
Okay,
buddy. Real
thanks,
quick
man.
though, I would like to, I love how you start these off like that. Tell us, just synthesize at the top level from the heart. What's it mean to you?
Well, McMahon, I told you this at a dinner table a long time ago when I was at MongoDB. Much to the dismay of my dad, I decided to shift from being an economics major to an English major.
I
And my
remember
dad
the
was
story
like,
very well.
"Do you?"
Especially remember the Cadillac in the driveway.
Yeah, he made me move the Cadillac that I bought right after I graduated. I brought it to the house. I pulled it in the driveway. I was so proud because I had this job in sales and I was making money and I was going to take on a big car note. And I had the Cadillac in the front, just real quick for your listeners.
No,
I
this
came
is
in,
a
I was
great
like,
story.
yeah, I was like, Dad, I bought this Cadillac and it was the big Cadillac DTS sedan. It was black and it was on these really shiny wheels. And he says, "Let me take a look." And I throw him the keys and he goes out to the front. He looks at it. He comes back in like 5 seconds later. He throws the keys back to me. He goes, "Son, you're 23 years old. You have 5 seconds to get that car out of my driveway and move it somewhere down the street." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
But
He
because
wanted that.
Alex went into sales, what his dad used to always ask him is, okay, you going into sales? All right. Yeah, just tell me what restaurant you're going to bartend in.
That's
Which
right. That's
restaurant?
right. What with this English major, what restaurant are you going to work at? I'll try to get your table and tip you from time to time. He was really nervous, but I have an appreciation, I guess, at Kaplan to answer your question for literature and for escaping a little bit in that way and slowing down this motor. And it helps to, I think, offset my obsession with work. And so reading stuff like that and thinking on those things quiets the motor a little bit and it's helpful for me. Kind of like exercise is. This gets me out of myself. So that's the reason behind it.
Love it. Love it. And so this, in the spirit of reflection, you spent your career at big powerhouse software giants like Mongo and Zscaler, and then you made a highly reflective pivot. So when I first started talking to you about like, what did you do? Like, you had been thinking about this in the spirit of your reflection. You had been thinking about this for quite a while. So tell us a little bit about the pivot that you made and why you're excited about it.
Sure. So I think I was fortunate to have really good timing and intersection with great talent at MongoDB and Zscaler. And then I had really cool exposure to the kind of the upskilling of human capital through a couple of venture-backed companies in that space, right? Like, and I found that to be really fascinating. In 2016, there was a book written by Kai-Fu Lee. It was written in 2018. In 2018, there's a book written by Kai-Fu Lee that talked about the AI super wars and like the battle between China and the United States and AI. And this is 2018. And the story goes quickly. Sorry, because this is the reason that the spark, or when the spark occurred, maybe. In 2016, Google's DeepMind, a company they acquired, an AI company, built a piece of software, a piece of AI called AlphaGo. And in 2016, that piece of software, that AI, beat Lee Sedol, the world champion of Go, which is an extremely complex game, far more complex than chess and its configurations and possibilities. So this piece of AI beat the world's most popular, most complicated game, Go, and it woke China up. It was like a massive event in 2016. The number of viewers that watched this match is like hundreds of times what we would watch in a Premier League game, or many thousands times more than what you'd watch in a Super Bowl game. And China woke up and they started throwing an unbelievable amount of money into developing AI and new economies focused around AI. And I remember reading that story, and then I watched the video of AlphaGo beating Lee Sedol and how everybody freaked out. And I was like, this is really cool. So I started to lean in there, and I saw maybe with the human upskilling that was a really important thing so that we could coexist and augment ourselves with AI and supervise AI. And then I got a phone call about this opportunity to be at the compute layer of this world and what's happening right now. And the more that I understood what was invented and what was being brought to market, the more I leaned into it. And I think that agentic AI and its velocity will be the biggest creator of GDP growth versus any sort of software company or training of individuals and things like that.
So you wind up at Cerebras,
Yep.
and I'd say your timing's pretty good, brother, with the sales apocalypse. And, I think the way you were describing it to me, like, the software only world, just set the agenda for the topic that we're going to talk about, like, you know, and why it was good timing in your mind.
I'm really fortunate to get the phone call from Alan and then to get introduced to Cerebras Systems. And I'll set the stage for the listener to understand kind of what's going on here, and realize that, like, I don't have any great. I have to have this moment with you all of a little bit of imposter syndrome, okay, and like humility, because I'm going to describe the inception of Cerebras Systems and why that matters and how important that is. So I report to Andrew Feldman, who's the CEO and co-founder. He's one of 5 co-founders of Cerebras Systems, and I talk to him many times per week. And if you all sincerely haven't watched him on podcasts with All In or with Harry Stebbins and the various ones that he has time to do, it's pretty phenomenal. Like the way he explains the AI landscape, the world that we live in, its complexities, he breaks it down and simplifies it and makes it relatable and understandable, unlike any way that I ever could, right? And I'm surrounded by him and the co-founders and our engineering team and our product leads and these scientists, and I get to watch them go to work and talk about this stuff. And so for me to describe it is like it pales in comparison to what they have. But to go back 10 years ago, okay, in 2016, the same year that OpenAI was founded, the same year that Cerebras Systems was founded, and Gary and Sean and JP and Michael and Andrew saw that AI was fundamentally a different workload than traditional computing. Okay, this is 10 years ago. And they saw that the math was simple, but moving massive amounts of data required for the mathematical calculations was really hard. But they realized that that was going to be something extremely important. And so they set out to build the world's largest chip. I have it down here. This is the world's largest chip, okay? This is the entire silicon wafer. It's like the size of a dinner plate, if you can't tell by the scale of my large hands here. And so why? Who cares? What does it matter if it's the world's largest chip? It matters immensely. When you have a chip of this size, you can co-locate the memory and the compute next to each other. So you can move data between the two extremely fast. You're not leaving to go off to thousands of GPUs over a wire. And so what? Who cares? Well, the world has shifted. And by the way, this was attempted by the world's best and brightest scientists for 70 years to do that, to use the entire silicon wafer and not have any failures across that wafer and be able to get yield out of it. They did it. They cracked the code. And the reason that matters now, and the reason that their foresight is so brilliant, and Alan and I and the rest of the company are really lucky to represent this, the world has shifted from AI training to AI inference, right? Massive amounts of resources have been thrown at training the models that all of us use right now. And it's like, every week you read about one model beating the other, and then you get open weight models out of China that come out that were apparently trained for pennies on the dollar that are far more intelligent and beating benchmarks. Now the world's pivoted to using those models, and everyone's using them now. Our grandparents, our pets, our kids, and the requests are happening more frequently by more users, and the complexity of the requests are much greater. And the whole bottleneck with AI inference is memory bandwidth, because you have to move. I'm really nerding out here, but stay with me. Just to generate one token, one word, one part of a word on a small model, a 70 billion parameter model, that is moving 140 gigabytes of data from compute to memory for just one word. And you got to move all the weights and all that data again just to generate the next word. And inference is all about memory bandwidth, and the way that they architected the world's largest chip, it solves for that. It has an incredible amount of memory bandwidth. They eliminated the memory wall bottleneck. And I started to learn about that and learn about these AI supercomputers that contain these chips. And I leaned into it and I was like, I got to do this. I got to do this.
Well, Johnny,
Okay.
you remember when we first started you started the journey first, and then you were kind of bringing me up to speed on stuff. And you shared with me something on like where the cost of all this was going to go. And you told me about like, I remember like just how many billions of times somebody responds to a model that says thank you, and the billions of dollars. Like I couldn't comprehend it when you first were sharing with me, like the billions of dollars, because I do it when I use the models. I'm like, hey, that was great, thank you. And like,
You're wasting money and
Or they
electricity.
say,
Yeah.
"Good morning, Chat GPT," right? I mean, that's a cost
Yeah.
the
so
organization a lot of money.
So
Yeah,
what
it is.
Alex just shared with us, like you were talking about, hey, John, you don't understand like how much that costs and how much that, electricity that uses. And then when I started to dig in with Alex over, the last few months or whatever, he's telling me about the speed that is required. And what did you say to me about latency? You said what did you say to me? You said that,
Oh, yeah. Andrew talks about this. This is why, we believe, the world believes that, I talked about the shift from AI training to AI inference, right? Like you're using the models, building
yeah,
really cool applications on top of the models and using them. And it's like the broadband shift. That's what's happening in AI right now. Like the real engine behind the experience, the speed of that engine is really what matters now, right? And like there's no market for slow search, right? What is
that's
the
it.
market for slow search? There isn't one. And the same will hold true for agentic AI and agentic reasoning. Our expectation as humans, just like we expect with fast internet and fast search, our expectation is to be able to interact with AI in human clock speed responsiveness. And that's what we do. That's what we do best. And no number of GPUs stitched together can match that.
The reason why I like where we started here is because I think the average listener, including me in my journey, a couple of years ago or what have you, would be, I don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. And the why I love the way you shared this is when you're sitting there listening to this, a lot of people are enamored with models and would I think how many times did you get a phone call and go, Alex, what are you doing? You going to a hardware company? So you
All the
go from
time.
software company to a hardware company, and the thought process behind that is why is Alex going backwards?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not even it's not even close to being. This is where the real pain is in AI, and the solvable pain right now is huge right here.
I don't mean to be controversial, but I think that if we used to look at like compute, storage, and networking as commodities, and then I don't know, I used to knock hardware sellers. I don't know if you all ever did, like with box pushers or whatever. I don't know.
I
I'm sure.
was one back in the day.
Okay. And I mean, look at the models. They're reaching like reasoning parity. Like they're converging onto each other in their intelligence and accuracy and reliability. And then you have a ton of AI natives that are building all these applications. Things are kind of crowded right now. And I think it's really interesting, if that reasoning parity is being reached and these models and all these applications have a lot of overlap. To me, the real differentiator left is the speed and scale of the engine and the sophistication of the workloads it can support. And so I found the prospect of that to be really, really interesting.
Well, you talked about memory bandwidth. What about power consumption? That's a big issue right now with AI. Does the chip from Cerebras help with minimizing power consumption?
It is. The power draw is significantly more efficient, significantly reduced. Imagine that you don't have a requirement for thousands of chips that are stitched together, running a bunch of data across them back and forth. Yeah, the efficiency savings are very real and very material for sure.
What about cooling?
Another efficient benefit to the way that this was architected, it's liquid cooled. And the world is moving to that, from air cooled data centers to liquid cooled data centers. You can have that water more or less recycled constantly through the data center and chilled to the appropriate temperature. That is far more efficient
And
as
all of the
well.
new data centers that are being built, just for the listeners, and all the arguments that are going on power consumption, like it's a little bit of hype in some cases because they're all being built liquid cool, right?
Yeah. I think that's a definite benefit, and it's I don't think there's a shortage of power. It's getting the power to the data center locations and doing so in an efficient way. I mean, there's plenty of power to be extracted from multiple sources. There's lots of power and energy that's wasted every day. The infrastructure's got to be modernized and efficient and brought to the data center locations. But I'm going to
That's why you
outpunt.
have companies like GE Vernova, Bloom Energy, Vertiv, all those types of companies, Constellation Energy, all their stocks are taking off.
Thank you, John McMahon.
That's right. That is right. Yeah,
I do my
I think it's
homework.
I listened to you,
yeah,
buddy. I listened to you.
All right.
yeah.
Hey, you were talking about getting controversial. Can I get a little controversial?
Yeah, please. I love
Let me
that
get a little
stuff.
controversial. And there's a provocative idea circulating that I hear people say that a significant percentage of software sellers today are really at risk, whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, in this new world. Like, first of all, what's provocative about that? I know that it's, for somebody like me, it catches my attention. Where do you think that's coming from?
One example right now, like Jimmy Lee, my RevOps guy, this is our third company together. You met Jimmy in London a while back. And he trained like 5 or 6 agents over Easter weekend while his family was asleep. He gets up at like 4 in the morning and just goes down a very curious path. And he trained 4 or 5 agents that are looking at. He's got one for voice of the customers, so product feedback, going through Jira tickets and things like that. He's got one for some forecasting. He's got another one to monitor solution architecture work, and he's got 6 that are in the works, right? So think like 10 inside of a week that is going to augment his productivity immensely. They are going off and conducting tasks on his behalf. I'm going to build and train a few this week myself, get hands on keyboard. And I think the understanding how to augment your own productivity in your profession matters, no matter what, especially for sellers. And if I can imagine, like my daughter, who's a sophomore in college, in 2 years' time, I would really encourage her to go into an interview and, almost like an artist would lay out a portfolio of
Mm.
work that they've done, or if they're a model, they show like the shots that they've done. I want her to come and show the agents that are multipliers of herself, extensions of herself, and show what she can bring to the table that equals the productivity of, I don't know, 5 or 10 humans, her plus her agents. And I think, sellers have got to get really curious about this space. Those that are potentially at risk are those who don't have hands-on keyboard experience and don't know how to augment their productivity or supervise agentic AI in their job, right? To just make them more capable. The great thing is, though, I think humans are going to crave. I just got back from London and Stockholm meeting with prospects and customers. By the way, the tech in Stockholm is incredible. I don't know. Like the minds there are brilliant. I don't want to call it specific logos, but what's happening in Stockholm is fascinating. Um, Humans are going to crave sellers' interpersonal and intrapersonal capabilities and communication skills and just being face to face with them. The email is dead. It's just been taken over by AI slop. And, like we're going to crave some human fallibility and some misspellings and custom made emails and face to face meetings. So I think it's two parts. That really matter: getting hands on keyboard, knowing
Well,
how
this is where you've
valuable.
wound up today.
Yeah,
But you had discussions with me in the beginning where you would say you called it. You said imposter syndrome. You said, Cap, I'm feeling exposed. Like,
yeah.
walk me through that experience and how you had to level set yourself. Because if you stayed in that exposure world, then you would have just gotten, and the people that are funding this and the people that are, they have certain ideas about playbooks and the way software sales was done. Just give me your perspective on that. And I think you're calling it like a technical athlete is really what we all need to become.
I think that's it. I mean, there was a tweet. I don't want to name names, but there was a tweet that kind of rocked my world from a highly influential person who I love and admire. And he basically said that, like, I'm seeing these traditional software leaders go over to AI native companies or AI centric companies, and they're trying to transfer their playbooks and they're just getting creamed. Like, I'm paraphrasing. And so I think there is like a adaptability and situational awareness when you come into an AI native company, or if you make a big pivot from being a heralded software seller into something like representing the world's fastest inference, the world's fastest compute. There's a lot to learn, and you have to, and you all encourage this in your work, and in John's book, like, you got to come in and really assess the situation. It's like John when McMahon, when he talked about coming in and you assess the talent, right? Assess the situation around you. Have a really good understanding of strengths and weaknesses and vulnerabilities around you. What can you affect? What can you not affect? And I came into the company now. I'll never forget the first executive meeting. It's like four of the five co-founders, or they walk in. I'm just sitting in this big kind of room, and four of the five co-founders come in, and then there's Natalia, there's Angela, there's Jessica, these unbelievable product leaders and machine learning field leaders. And it's just really quiet. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really intimidating. And I realized that there was a steep learning curve that was going to be required, and that I didn't want to jump to conclusions too soon, right? And that I was going to have to go out and try to scale this thing and attack the market. And I was going to have to hire sellers for sure. But the sellers were going to come into the same situation as me because this is novel territory. I went and pillaged Snowflake, and because I mean, what an incredible company! Like they had a very different novel architecture, and they trained elite sellers. I'm like, I love that profile combined with EMC, because I love killers from Boston. I think the whole EMC sales cultures, and like the folks that have come out of EMC. But I found this sweet spot. I'm going off on a tangent of like Snowflake plus EMC, and then get in here because they have the intangibles, they have the skills that are transferable. Five pillars. I have to, no matter the technology, we're going to have to go out and attack the market and generate pipeline. We're going to have the courageous ability to qualify the pipeline. We're going to have to stay on top of mastery of messaging. We're going to have to manage the ICP, which is extremely dynamic in this space, by the way. We can talk about that, but I have to manage the territory and prioritize the territory. And then fifth and final, no matter where I'm at, I'm going to have to deliver an accurate forecast, right? But I
Which
knew I was
is
going to bring, yeah,
which is
yeah,
thousands of years old. So I love Johnny and I
yeah.
have these podcasts and we say the more things change, the more they stay the same. But explain to us the nuances. that basically if you have a static playbook with all of those things and you try to bring them into an AI centric company, you're dead. So
Yeah, you just have
it's almost what you're selling. It's the speed of adaptability.
that's right. That's right. Those are constant. Those five pillars, they persist no matter where you are. But the customer and how the customer buys is different. And you're coupled with a machine learning solution architect. And so you have to understand how you're coupled with that person. And and I don't know if that's terribly different from, partnering with a solution engineer across a different piece of technology, but the way that these models come out every week and the way that companies are formulating compute strategies and the way that they're formulating how they're going to leverage new models and what they build on top of them, the funding that is going around to these AI native companies that are disrupting traditional enterprises, you have to think about, like, am I going to need, the software capacity model where I've got to have this many bodies in the Northeast, this many bodies in the West, this many in North Central, et cetera, and EMEA and APAC, where really is my ICP, granted all the dynamic, constant changing in this AI landscape. My inclination is just to go attack the enterprise market with this crew and attack the Fortune 500 and the Forbes 2000. But what's really interesting are the extremely well capitalized AI native companies that have just emerged in the last 6, 12, 18 months, right? Have really come out and disrupted the whole scene. And so we have to keep our ear to the ground on the innovation velocity around different companies that are very well capitalized and determine, where to invest our time in them versus a Fortune 500 that's scared for their life, but maybe moves a little bit slower.
Let's get more practical. So, I mean, whether you're working, at your company, which is like on the leading edge of AI, and things are changing every week and people are getting funded different ways, all of that stuff AI can help with, whether you're in something moving as fast as the company you're in, or some traditional software companies, or some companies that are just now starting to accept, what AI is doing to sales. Because at the end of the day, today, still only 25% or 30% of the time people are actually selling face to face or selling to the customer. The other 75 to 80% of the time, people are not selling. They're in non-productive activities. They're doing admin. They're updating the tech stack. They're researching customers. They're researching use cases. They're doing homework on what's the latest and greatest news of the customer. They're coordinating calendars. I'm coordinating information with my internal and external stakeholders. I'm spending 80% of my time doing that crap that AI can help me at least cut in half, maybe even more, to help me spend not 25 or 30% of my time selling, but spend 50 to 75% of my time selling. That's where I think the leverage comes for anybody that's in sales and is trying to understand, how is this going to affect me? I think it's going to affect you in a very positive way and give you a lot more time in front of the customer if you use the tools that really help you with these non-productive activities.
100%. Like the RevOps team that I thought that I was going to need to build out McMahon, like 14 months ago versus what I actually need right now by using tools or training my own agents like Jimmy did this past weekend. You're right. And like I think that's the evolution of sellers. As long as like the agents that they train are, sponsored and approved by their company and able to connect to the system of record and the artifacts that the agents would sit on top of, they can get a significant amount of time back now through great technology and specifically through agentic AI. Like that's a big point. That's something that I highly encourage folks to lean into. I don't have nearly, not to spook anybody, and I don't have nearly the software stack or the RevOps staff that I traditionally would have, because we've we've found automation and agentic workflows that are really helpful.
So for the listener here that's listening to you, you said, the kind of EMC background, the kind of snowflake background. I want you to go a little bit deeper. A couple of days ago, you and I were talking about this, and you were talking about the intelligence, and the common one that we talk about a lot is curiosity. And you started to talk about multiple levels and layers of intelligence when you think about you really need to have as a seller today in this type of environment. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I think that there could be an argument, at least traditionally in this industry, and even with some of the folks that have been here for a while. Like, I don't really need the AE. Just give me a really sharp technical solution architect, and we'll go close the deals with like product leaders, or we'll just do kind of more founder-led sales. With the profile of AEs that I hired, I knew that no matter what, this is universal, that we're always going to have to translate the technical capabilities of the technology into value, for sure. And that we were going to need to be really strong value translators. We're going to need to be able to whiteboard the tech for sure, but the business win is going to be extremely important, even after the technical team wins the math. To have a fun, poor description of how great the technical team is and how important they are. Our essays are brilliant. They're extremely important. But we really have got to be able, in such a competitive world, to understand the buying committee, which is going to be extremely cross-functional. You're going to have infrastructure owners, you're going to have product leaders, you're going to have engineering, you're going to have technical experts all over the place, and they can all win the logic battles. But the AE has got to be an extreme orchestrator that listens and understands where the value is and understands how to command the premium of the world's fastest tokens. And so the whole multiple intelligence thing that helps me get over my imposter syndrome in a highly technical sale. That's all Howard Gardner's framework. People can look that up. That human potential isn't just like one IQ score, right? Like, the AEs have got to go out and attack the market and prioritize their territory and beget opportunities, qualify the opportunities. It's like, if you have an AE and an SA in the room, and let's pretend it's just SAs. Let's say that like there's a founder-led theory that I don't need AEs. This is so technical, sizing workloads and all that stuff is so technical. Just give me an essay, okay? We'll figure out the rest. Customer asks a question to the SE or the SA. They ask like, hey, what models do you serve? Right? What models do you serve? How's the SE or the SA going to answer the question?
Black and white.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you the models that I serve. You ask the question, logically, I'm going to give you the answer, right? An AE is going to have the interpersonal intelligence and curiosity to say, maybe that sounds like that's an important topic to you, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. It sounds important to you. Do you mind? I'm going to answer your question. I don't mean to play games. Can you help me understand why did you ask? Why are you asking which models we serve? Okay. Well, because I can't tell you 6 months from now what model is going to come out from where, from Anthropic or from OpenAI or from Grok or from some model lab out of China. And like, I don't have a permanent model strategy when these things are leapfrogging you. So I need to know, like, what do you serve now? And I imagine Mr. and Mrs. Customer is probably important what we're going to serve in the future, like what our model roadmap is. Those kinds of things aren't most commonly natural in my experience with SEs. And pure sellers are kind of born and raised, or at least the ones I like to hire, to really qualify these things and go down and listen for that opportunity, listen for that intent. I think that's something I see quite a bit.
Well, they're
that makes sense.
qualifiers and they're skeptics. The really good ones are pure maniacal qualifiers and genuinely skeptical of every question the customer asks. They want to qualify it. Why do you ask it? How come? Is that a threat to me? Should I answer the question? Should I answer it partially? Should I answer the whole thing? That's what's running through your mind.
Yeah, that's right. And we're taking on an 800-pound gorilla, right? Like this is high stakes stuff. We're taking on a massive incumbent, and we've got to have that awareness, and we got to have some really good judgment, and making sure that we understand pain and we understand the implications behind that, and we're really good value
Okay,
translators.
so what tools have you put in that are AI that you've bought off the shelf and you've put into your sales to help your sales force, the sales process?
These are his partners that he's selling to. Go ahead.
No, 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 no. There's no circular stuff going on here.
Okay.
No. It's John, it's really limited. It's really limited. Like I don't have the stack that I used to have everywhere else. The
Because
reason now, I don't think that'll stay this way, but the
no, it's
reason
definitely not going
is
to stay that way.
right. I mean, I think there's some tools that I want to take on, but like the example I gave you, we are training agents, the ones that have access connected to our systems, to pull from our systems of records and do some ongoing research and analysis and surface patterns and risks to us. So I have a traditional CRM, and I have content management. I have some automation in our outreach, but everything else, I'm using agents that we're training to pull the information and do tasks for us.
I wanted to just follow up on this one. We'll come back to the stack in a second because I think that's very interesting and how we all agreed that for now and maybe what you think that's going to look like. But I wanted to make a point on this imposter syndrome because I've been there before in my life, and I try to put myself in positions as much as I can to feel like an imposter. It means I'm growing and I'm learning, and if you're not growing, you're dying, so to speak. And however, my experience is when people get into those types of environments, they try to learn as much as they can about the technology. And I've always felt like companies have the responsibility to really help you with the knowledge of what that is, how it works, why is it a problem, how do you do it differently than anybody else. Companies owe you that. What you should bring to the table, if you're listening to this, is this intellectual curiosity, which is when you have an imposter syndrome, you have a tendency to try to be more interesting on a sales call or with people in a room versus being interested. And somebody said that to us, Johnny. I think it was our Sellen DeVito friend. The best sellers on the planet are the ones who focusing on being interested in what the customer's saying versus trying to be interesting to the customer. And I just want to kind of highlight that I find myself in that scenario where I'm trying to learn as much as I can about the new world that we're all in, and still going back to the basics of what problems does it solve? How specifically do you solve it? Like, how do you do it differently or better than anybody else? And where have you done it before? And allow people to go on a journey with you.
Yeah.
Have you met anybody, Alex, that's expecting you to say, you should understand, like when you went to Stockholm, did anybody say to you, you should understand my environment? You should understand exactly what we're doing. Or did they expect you to be interested in what they were doing and then from that interest have a hypothesis about what you might be able to do for them? Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, the really cool part about the folks that I met with in both London and Stockholm, and I think even here is like I get down. My strength is, I think, in the business acumen and understanding that if I, for example, provide the only engine that's fast enough to allow agents to self-reflect and collaborate in milliseconds, then I'm enabling products that were physically impossible 2 years ago or a year ago. And so, when you think about like latency, so I get to ask the really simple questions, but when you think about latency in a product, right? Imagine you're on with a pharmacy and they've built a new conversational bot or app. In fact, there is one right now that is extremely frustrating to me. It's like a 2-second SLA. I call into the pharmacy. I've low thyroid by genetics, so I got to take a thyroid supplement. I'm violating HIPAA on the show. And you call in, to the pharmacy, and the whole goal of these big pharmacy chains is to like reduce the number of people like me calling trying to talk to the pharmacist for basic things like a refill, right? So they built this conversational bot, and it's on a 2-second SLA. I know, I can tell, and it's way too slow for conversational. You need to be like 500 milliseconds or less, right? Like, but anyways, we empower instant AI, especially for conversational use cases, for agentic coding, for deep search, and so I get to talk to people in Stockholm and London, for example, about not just how much greater that is for the user experience, but what do you do to pack in value and revenue opportunity with that latency savings? Like, how much more sophisticated does your product get? I ask them just point blank. If I bring it down where you're responding to human in 200 milliseconds and your SLA is 500 milliseconds, imagine the tool calling, the sophistication you can pack in between 200 and 500 milliseconds with me. Can you help me understand where that might have an impact on your customer satisfaction, your revenue, on and on
So
and on.
those two worlds, what I love about what you're saying here, and I just want everybody to hear, go replay this story from Alex. There's a mindset that would say, I can do that faster, and talk about all the things that you can do to do that faster. And you will be talking to people that are responsible for making that faster. You also need to be talking to people to talk about what they're going to do as business outcomes for that speed. And those
I
that
t-
as old as
yeah,
dirt, that's Egypt
yeah,
old. It's like
yeah,
where technical requirements create business outcomes. And it's just a little heads up. Because I think when I've talked to people that go over to AI native companies, they spend so much of their time trying to not feel, and I think what, like you said, you just put the right technical people in the room and you are the value orchestrator. You're like, okay, and I say this a lot sometimes. I'm like, okay, let me just ask the dumb question in the room or whatever. So what? So you can do it
yeah,
500 milliseconds or whatever. What does that do? Who cares about that in the organization? And depending on who you're talking to, you'll find that they might go up a technical chain and they'll talk about the technical people and SLAs and that. But there's a line of business that it's as old as dirt. And so
yeah.
it's kind of, I'm not saying you have to be on your game, but don't get overwhelmed.
That's right. Yeah,
Bring your A game.
one of the companies, McMahon and Cap, they have a flat subscription rate for their users for their service. It's just you subscribe. But, again, I get to be kind of dumb. And so, well, if I make the responsiveness that much faster, do you think there's a market for premium users and you would charge a premium? Could you open up another tier, right? Which is happening all over the place, right? Anthropic just did Opus Fast, for example. OpenAI's Codex, and then Codex Spark, which is powered by us. And the guy was like, "Well, we never thought we would get into premium tiers, but we're just kind of one size fits all." And I'm like, "Well, it's possible, right?" He's like, "Absolutely, it's possible." And I imagine it would pay for what you and I are talking about in droves. And he was like, "Yeah, you can start seeing me, selling a little bit." So I had to hold that back. But yeah, it's just that, where's the value? What's the art of the possible? Stuff like that.
Love that. So again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's like that didn't change when you were selling for the big behemoth software only companies. That's exactly what you were doing there when you're going to AI native companies. And now at the infrastructure layer, in a highly technical environment, that doesn't change. You still have to connect those two worlds. So tell us a little bit about the the playbook side of it as it relates to, you're sitting in the seat, you're a CRO, you're sitting in the seat, you know how to build organizations. What are some nuances that, and you also have monster customers who are also partners. And so you're feeding, you can't, I can't imagine that you could build an organization with a sales force that just goes and calls on those monsters in that partnership relationship. What are some of the big nuances that you had to upskill yourself on how to attack that problem of going and building a go-to-market in this? I don't want to call it Wild West because it's not Wild West, but it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I think again, like the management of who our ideal customer is, our ICP is something that we have to like constantly pay close attention to. And I always want
So
to
it's not a once
maintain.
a year type thing. Hey, this year it's
No,
this. Yeah.
no. I mean, we revised this not in months, but in weeks. Like we just stay really close to this because we have to be very focused with our time and our energy. Of course, I don't know if that's terribly different for others, but like we've got to make we have these monster deals for sure. But I'm putting a ton of wood behind the arrow and just generating very healthy pipeline constantly. But there's a lot of companies that have emerged and that have been well funded, and it's hard to tell like who's going to survive what, right? Like, and so in some ways, we're having to place bets with who we interact with, right? Like, genuinely, who's going to go big with us? Who's going to have durable, growing consumption of tokens with us? Who understands our value and who's going to do great things and create new categories and new economies? And we go and build pipeline behind that. It's different than me traditionally just going up market and attacking the Fortune 500 and the Forbes 2000. It's very different. I'm watching the emergence of these AI natives and attacking the ones that we think are going to do extremely well for the long haul. I've never had to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Are you using any AI or any of your agents that you're building? A lot of people are talking about in this world, the ICP is changing under our feet
Yeah.
sometimes. Are you using anything? Could you give any heads up to the audience on you and your smart Mr. Lee, your smart RevOps people?
Yeah.
Are you doing anything to stay on top of that more than you
We
have done before?
we are like we're tracking the flow of capital. We're tracking raises. We're taking data from multiple sources and synthesizing it and constantly updating our top target lists for sure. Um, and so
Tell me how that
that
affects the seller workflow. Like, so you got
yeah.
the ability to do that. Like, what changes for the seller?
Um, it's the tiering, I guess, the prioritization of the accounts that they attack and put into their PG cadence changes, right? They will introduce new companies into their tier one, which commands the majority of their time and attention based on market signals. You have really interesting companies that are attacking healthcare problems, that are disrupting what lawyers do, what accountants do, and so we have data sources and signals that flow in, and we have scoring, of course, and then of course that'll change the way that they prioritize their time and who they go after to try to create pipeline. I don't mean to be too vague. I'm a little hesitant to give you like exact vendor names. Maybe I
Okay.
can do like a follow-on blog or something to tell you exactly what's in my stack. But I would just tell you like um, it is a shorter stack than I've ever had with less humans behind it than I've ever had.
And you're not buying technology just to buy it or to have relationships. What people are going at use cases and they're going at seller workflow. So use cases for the technology that they're interested in, and does it match? In this example, does it match immediately to a high value uh, sales workflow that makes sellers more productive? I think if you start there, the advice for everybody out there, the closer you get the farther you get from inspection to adding value in the engine of pipeline generation and qualification and making it easier for those sellers with these highly intellectual curiosity and the things that we were talking about, the human factor that's going to be very, very hard to replicate. Getting it in the hands of those people seamlessly and less painfully is really the name of the game, I think. So I'm
That's
looking
right.
forward to the blog.
Yeah, I will. I'll put some thoughts on paper and reveal some of the secret sauce. But I would tell you that like I'll just give a tip of the hat to the leaders that took a bet on me to come over here, that were in really great companies, really great high growth environments. Griff, Paul, Jason, Mark, Suvig, Jimmy, the crew. Others like they went out and like I learned from you all, like you hire great A+ leaders, they're going to go out and hire great people. They're obsessed with our work, and they are they were able to recruit people before we had a really large inference business, or as it was emerging. They made the bet with me, and I'm extremely grateful for that and for them.
Amazing. Amazing.
Congrats.
Hey, Alex, before we go, advice to sales leaders and advice to sellers, thinking about everything we just talked about, and then thinking about Alex 2 or 3 years ago. What
Okay.
is the best advice you could give to sales leaders listening to this and sellers?
So I would go just April 1st, April Fool's Day. Roloff Brotha, if I'm pronouncing his last name, Sequoia, had a conversation with Jack Dorsey. And Jack Dorsey wrote a paper about, I think roughly it's like hyper intelligence over hierarchy. And his vision for this intelligence layer that's going to traverse the entire company, and that there are three layers of humans that are interacting with that intelligence layer. There's the IC, the DRI, and then the coach, conductor, orchestrator. Um, Having an understanding of where potentially the world is going with agentic AI, and having an extreme central brain that traverses the entire company, and how you would interact with that. I'd go dig into that thing and listen to that. I would also prompt your favorite model to build a learning path for yourself, so that you understand AI training, inference, AGI. You understand prompt engineering. You understand the concept of tokens, and you understand maybe how tokens might be assigned. There might be a token budget per employee in the future, right? There kind of is one now, but it's that will be a thing. There's a labor shift, not just a software shift. I would just
Oh,
get really in tune with that and understand it, and like have a self-learning enablement path. And you can shine with that stuff. And the things that are in John's book and the things that are in this podcast are universal truths that will travel no matter and apply no matter where the tech takes us. And I tried to hit on a few of them. And so, the level of human talent, the level of coaching your people and developing your people and being maniacal about execution, being extremely curious and driven, like those things are still going to apply. And I think coupled with a really great learning path, you're future proofing yourself potentially in a really good way.
I love that. What I've been saying, Alex, is, and I've been saying it for decades, or a couple of decades at Force Management. For me, now more than ever, attach yourself to the biggest business issue facing your customers and influence their decision criteria with your differentiation. Now, those are a mouthful. Those
Yeah.
are absolutely a mouthful. But if I'm a leader or I'm a seller and I'm looking at those two skill sets, those for me are at the top of the list right now.
1,000% agree. Sincerely, even in this new world that I'm in, that is 100% still true, and that will remain true. That will persist.
Amazing. I feel like I got to go read some so I feel like I got to go read some poetry, Johnny. What are you reading for poetry, Johnny? What are you reading right now?
Me?
Yeah, come
I'm
on,
reading
exposure.
Leonardo da Vinci right now.
The
Ah,
By
biography.
by Walter Isaacson. He
Oh, that's
wrote
a big one.
Jobs. He wrote about Elon Musk. He wrote Einstein. I love his writing.
Yeah, I read two. I don't know if this is going to make the cut for post prod, but over Christmas break, Cormac McCarthy, No Country for Old Men, and The Road. Um, and those will blow your hair back. Those two are really cool too for
well done.
fiction.
Well done. My two are well, my one for sure, and I keep going back to reread it, is the founders, about the guys that started PayPal. It's fascinating to me. I just found so many and what they did after PayPal and how they built companies and the culture associated with that and how they messaged and created boards. And I just found that a great read. And then a personal one that I have is I'm on a big just coming off the holiday here. I'm on a big investigative path on the Shroud of Turin, and we'll have to do another podcast on that one. But when you talk about technology and technology advancements are actually blowing my mind on what they're revealing on that. So coming to a theater near you.
Very cool.
Well
Very
done,
cool.
buddy. So great to see you.
Alex,
So happy for you. You've earned it, and can't wait to have you on again when you're talking about, full scale what this thing has turned into.
Thank you.
congrats,
Thank you very
Alex.
much. John McMahon, it's great to see
Appreciate it.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
I appreciate you very much, John Kaplan. I appreciate you very much, and I wish you the best. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You got it, brother.
And thanks to everyone for listening to another episode of the Revenue Builders Podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help us reach more people. This show is brought to you by Force Management, where we help companies improve sales performance, executing the growth strategy at the point of sale. Check out forcemanagement.com for more information.